All right, aloha and welcome to the Own the Outcome podcast. My name is Tyler Devereaux, and I'm here with Angie Noack, and I'm so excited. Listen, all y'all out there, pull out pens, papers, whatever you take notes with, because Angie is a beast in the neuro feedback space, and you will learn a ton about your brain and how to optimize it. So, Angie, welcome to the podcast.
For sure, Tyler. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be on.
Tell us a little bit about, I definitely want to know a little bit about your background, but I want to dive into some of the nitty gritty with you. I'm actually very excited to grill you with some questions. Your area of expertise is very intriguing to me. And I think that it is the unlock to so many things. And I'm sure you also would agree with that. But tell me a little bit about your background. How did you get into this space first?
For sure. Yeah. So by trade, I'm a clinical mental health counselor. So I'm licensed in clinical mental health, master's in clinical mental health. And honestly, I feel like neuro kind of found me. That I had, a personal experience with a brain thing a long time ago, and I can, kind of get into that later. But through my master's, I think probably everybody in the middle of school goes, wait, what am I doing? Why am I spending all this time, all this effort? Do I even want to do this? And honestly, I was always really brain-based. So I had a professor in my master's who introduced me to people outside of that working with neuro. And I was like, oh, that's it. That's what I want. So upon graduation, they approached me and said, hey, we want to bring on another clinician. I started getting into the neurospace, worked with that company for a while, and came on Brain Code Centers I've been with for many years now, and it's the freaking best.
Okay, so take it from your knowledge level down to like an elementary level, because I loved how you explained it to me too, but what you help people do.
Absolutely. So neurofeedback is ultimately operant conditioning of the brain, right? We're optimizing the brain. So anything from anxiety, depression, ADD, trauma, PTSD, brain injury, sleep issues, all of those things, a lot of times we kind of have as a culture a medication mentality, right? Like, hey, my only options for anxiety are medication or counseling. That kind of is what it is. Or like maybe some meditation, I can try to, handle it naturally or whatever that looks like. And ultimately, those are not the only options, right? Our brain, it's an organ, but it works like a muscle in that we can flex it and we can change it and we can grow it, right? So really, neurofeedback is a way to create physiological new neural pathways in the brain through reward-based training and literally teaching your brain to do all of those things better and differently. Like if you need to focus better, we work a lot with professional athletes who already think that they're the best thing ever, right? But they know that, maybe neck down, they are comparable to all of these other amazing athletes. So how do they get that 1%, right? Their brain is absolutely their best asset. If you can be faster and quicker and better and your memory more crisp, or you can recover from a concussion faster, you're the better athlete.
Yeah, who Jim Quick is? I'm sure you know who Jim Quick is.
I do.
Jim recently spoke at one of our events, and he obviously talks very much about the same thing, or similar things, but rewiring some of the brain and how you do that, and truly, like, how did you say it? Neural pathways and creating new ones, correct?
That's right.
So, which is so powerful, because sometimes I don't think that, one of the things you had mentioned, you'd said, a lot of people focus on their physical side, but they don't focus on the neck up.
Yeah.
So, and I believe, you tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's because they don't know what to do. Like, I know if I go to the gym, I do some bench presses, squats, whatever, but like, how do I work on my brain?
Oh, Tyler, you're exactly right. That I think if people knew how, I believe that they would do it, right? A lot of times too, that people don't go to the gym because it's intimidating. They might not know what to do. They don't eat healthy because they really need like some help and somebody to just come alongside them. That's why we have coaches. That's why we have nutritionists. For our brain, what do we have, right? We have neurospecialists. So what I do. So kind of to walk you through a little bit about, kind of the who we are and the what we do. We always start with a baseline QEEG brain map. It's a quantitative electroencephalogram. So it's on the same playing field as a CT or an MRI or an EEG, except that we're not only looking for structural damage in the brain, right? So it's not that we won't see it if somebody has had a brain injury or a concussion or something. It's not that we're not going to see that. It's just that that's not the only thing that we're looking for. we're looking at the electrical and the neurological wave activity happening in the brain. And literally everything is going to show itself to us in neurological patterns, right? I hear from a lot of like middle-aged dudes, like, I don't have a concussion history. I'm like, oh, did you play football and, high school? Yeah. And in college. I'm like, oh, so no concussion. Yeah, okay. And that's fine, because back then we called it like getting your bell rung. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. But your brain doesn't forget. And then I look at the brain map and I'm like, oh, actually, we do have a concussion history. Do you, have issues with sleep, with focus? Are you kind of grumpy? Well, yeah, all those things are, kind of these little like imprints on the brain that leave that. Same thing if we have really early developmental trauma. Even if, later as an adult, we're like, hey, I've addressed that. I know my triggers, whatever. It's not that that is erased from the brain, right? There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score by Vessel van der Kolk, and it talks about how basically we hold trauma on like a cellular level. So ultimately, how do we address that, right? Sometimes we could talk ourselves to death, go to counseling for 10 years. Well, but I still deal with all of these things. So how do I change that? And neuro really is kind of a backdoor way into addressing it on that neurological level. So our brains are kind of like computers, right? They literally are like the most amazing computers. If we have a software update, great. Counseling, maybe some meds, maybe some meditation, all these things, eating right, drinking water, great. Those are all software updates for a computer. If we have a hardware issue, a software update's never going to touch that. Really, we have to get into the hardware, and that's the neuro. So when people actually come to us let me stop there. Any questions about that?
No, you're killing it. No, I'll tell you that I'm already so pumped to re-listen to this episode. I'm serious. Like, I geek out about this stuff. I love this kind of stuff. I literally believe that it is, well, it's been a game changer for me, and I don't even know a fraction of what you know, which, listen, you're here. I know my listeners will benefit from it a ton, but you're here because, well, I'm interested,
Yeah.
and I hope that they are too, which they are. But
Julie,
no,
I mean,
keep going.
we
You're
do
crushing.
podcasts, so we can get, we want the information as well. We want to meet cool people. We want to know the stuff. I totally agree. But yeah, so that's how we start, is with that brain map. And that really is a map for us, right? We need to know, ultimately, anxiety alone can come from 50 different patterns in the brain. So rather than guessing what's going on in your brain, I could, right? If I talk to you for a couple minutes, I can probably give you an idea of what your brain pattern is. I'd rather know for sure. Right? This is not medication throwing spaghetti against a wall and seeing what sticks. I want to know. So the brain map is how we know. It really gives us, kind of exactly that map and that guide to say, okay, here's what we're going in for. And then the actual neurofeedback is operant conditioning of the brain. It is reward-based training. We're teaching the brain to create new neural pathways. So whether we do have a global remote program, as well as we do have offices in the Denver metro area, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and in Dallas, Texas. And so you can either come in person or you can do it remotely. No matter what, you always have, and I have a remote headset with me. If you come in person, we place little electrodes on your head. With remote, the electrodes are already embedded into the system. Never, ever is there any electrical stimulus going into your brain. So this is not some weird shock, anything. Just to clarify, not putting anything in. The electrodes are picking up information. They're monitoring and reading what the brain is doing. So electrodes are going to pick it up. It's going to go into an amplifier, into software, and then be fed back to that person through visual and auditory forms of reward, watching, listening. Those things are truly working as a mirror for our brains, that our brains get to experience in real time what it's doing and training itself. Like if we've ever given a speech or done Toastmasters or something, people tell us to practice in front of a mirror so that we can correct behavioral things, right? Like, what's my face doing? Why are my hands so awkward? Like, we correct behavioral things. With neurofeedback, we're correcting neurological things, and we're doing it with reward. So somebody might be, playing a brain game. They might be watching a show. I have a ton of different visuals. It's a very passive, very enjoyable form of learning, but it's not controlled by thoughts. And that's kind of, honestly, our culture is like mind over matter. You think it, be it. And I'm here for that. Like I'm here for the affirmations, do all the things. At the end of the day, right? If let's say you struggle with insomnia, I bet you tell yourself every night, I'm going to sleep great tonight. Come on, tonight's the night. All night, I'm going to sleep so good. I'm going to wake up, Oura Ring's going to be popping. And you wake up the next day and it's like, don't worry, it'll get better. No REM, no deep. Okay, but I'm not going to be anxious today, right? Like no heart palpitations. I'm going to feel so good, so positive. And then something happens or nothing happens and we feel like crap, right? Brain racing, panic attack. Well, what the heck? We said we weren't going to do this. Are you not strong enough? Can you not just make that happen? No shot, right? Our thoughts are not controlling that. The brain takes the path of least resistance. Those are automatic, deeply ingrained neural pathways in our brain. And we need to release ourselves of this kind of, idea that it's, if you want it, bad enough, you can just, overcome anxiety or depression or brain injuries or something. I challenge somebody, wake up tomorrow and forget how to walk. If you can do that, right, then like you've proven me wrong, end of discussion, like you got it. No, that is right. It is equally as deeply ingrained. So rather than trying to, pretend like we can erase it, we need to create something new.
What is up, y'all? Listen, if this podcast has brought joy or value at some point as you're listening to it, we would love it if you would be so kind as to leave us a review down below. That is how we keep this thing moving and finding individuals just like you to pour value into. Now let's get back to the show.
So every time that somebody puts on the headset or has electrodes on and has the visual, essentially aspects of the auditory that they're listening to and aspects of the visual that they're watching are feeding them novelty forms of reward. Video games are like the best way ever to well, actually social media probably, but either one are the best way to describe novelty reward. Why do we even like it, right? Why does it matter? You don't get anything. If you win a video game, nobody runs in the room and is like, here's your cookie or your cash, right? Like, no way. It's lights and it's sounds and it's action. It's hearts, it's likes. Hey, you win. It's little dumps of dopamine for our brain. So with neurofeedback, I'm only giving the brain those little dumps of dopamine when it's producing the wave activity that's favorable to you, right? That we're asking for. Your brain, every brain on the planet, I train kids with autism, we train kids with Down syndrome, every brain on the planet wants reward. So the minute it starts receiving even a hurt of microvoltage in what we're asking for, the screen will get brighter, volume will go up. All these things happen, telling the brain, ooh, yeah, here's your little dump of dopamine. This feels good. I want more of that. And we're going to do those things enough times over time that we're going to ingrain that new pattern, those new patterns, as we're creating multiple to permanency in the brain. So neurofeedback should not be forever, right? It's a tool. It's not like medication. It doesn't have a shelf life in the body. It's teaching the brain to do it on its own.
So you're literally watching the brain. So that device that you showed, because that was going to be one of my questions is, you do it remotely, because I knew that you had the remote program, and how do you do that remotely? So you actually ship the device. Okay, so as you have this device, okay, then it's attached to the phone. There's an app on the phone.
Yep.
And then you're literally watching what the brain is doing, and then you are on your end, or am I on my end, putting in those dopamine hits when it's doing what we want it to do.
Yeah, so we've programmed the systems, right? That when, so you're watching something passive, right? Like you could be watching a cooking show. You could be playing a brain game. So you're not just watching like something weird. You're watching something that should be pretty passive, pretty enjoyable. Because again, it's not about thought. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to make this happen, right? You honestly have to get out of your own way and let your brain on that like deepest of neurological level kind of take over. It's your passive brain, not your cognitive brain. But you're exactly right that your brain is literally watching what it's doing being fed back to it. And when it's not doing what we're asking it for, let's say that you struggle with anxiety. If your brain's just firing off all of this high beta, which is fast wave activity, it's not going to get anything, right? Your little plane's puttering along, your volume's low, your screen is dark. But the minute your brain goes, but I want something else, and starts firing off different wave activity to seek that reward, ooh, now it got a little bit of theta, slow, calming, rewarding wave activity. The screen will get brighter. Your brain, like I said, will be flooded with all of that dopamine, giving it that reward.
That's interesting. So what would you suggest to somebody who, let's say they want to try to rewire their brain, and they want to put in daily activities or something, some form of habit or something that they can help, I don't know, rewire those things or do those things. Do you have, advice on that as well?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I mean, neurofeedback is one aspect of rewiring the brain. I think it's an amazing tool.
Oh my God. Like what you're just explaining is so awesome.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. But also we don't have to have like fancy equipment to be able to start rewiring our brain, right? If you've read the book Atomic Habits, it literally goes into all of this on that neurological level, right? That We make literally 1 billion decisions every day. So if you're wanting to add in like new habits, rather than saying like, I'm going to go to the gym every single day, you know what I'm going to do tomorrow? I'm going to wake up and I'm going to have my gym clothes laid out. I did that last night. That was step one. Okay. Now I'm going to put on my gym clothes. Okay, great. I feel cuter, you know, going to the gym when I'm wearing a cute little set. Okay, so I'm going to pick out something that Angie looks hot in because that's going to make me want to go to the gym a little bit more. You know what? I feel really good about my little gym snack. So we're putting in all of these little things that are micro changes that create macro expressions, right? And create big things.
Sorry. I just
No,
wanted
no.
to,
Oh my gosh, please do.
honestly, I want to drill home on that because, you know, I don't believe that I'm just more disciplined than people or something like that. What I have is systems. And what you just mentioned, I will tell you that if, like, even with my journal, I use like a daily journal, right? But I'll tell you, if this is in my bag, I never use it. And I mean, never. Like, I'm telling you, I don't do it. But if it is on my counter, open, it has to be open too, with the pens on top of it, I'll journal every morning. So what do I do the night before? I just do that. And what you just mentioned, I do the exact same thing. So the first thing that I do when I wake up, like, you know, wash my face or whatever, but then literally the next step, I don't care how I feel, is I'm putting on my gym clothes.
That's right.
Because I do one or two things every day, either go to the gym or I go surf, just depending if there's a swell. So whatever I'm going to go do, I put that on. And if I don't put them on, I'm like, I'm going to wait because I'm going to read and stuff. Then I do not go. I procrastinate and don't go. That's it.
That's right.
Even though I love to go to the gym, it's like I've created a system that I know that if I put my gym clothes on, I'm going to go. Like, I'm going to go. That's it.
Absolutely. And you're
break them
100%
down.
right. I love what you said, systems. You've created systems. If we just magically expect things to happen without creating systems, I don't know who it is who can just magically wake up tomorrow and be like, now I'm a gym person. We start slow, right? We start with these really micro habits, these micro systems that then create larger. I'm doing my best friend and business partner, Rachel Lambert. She lives in Tulsa. I live in Denver. We're doing deep core together because we need to be shredded by Christmas. And my gym is in my basement. And at the end of the day, my deep core is like 15 minutes. I put my mat right in front of my table. I'm looking at my weights, my little 5-pound weights right now that I do deep core with, because that is a visual reminder every day. Like, have you done your freaking deep core yet, Angie? If it's in the basement, I wouldn't see it, right? So micro changes.
That's it. I love it. And, you know, and I think that's where people get off the path too, because they'll be like, okay, damn it, I'm changing my life. I'm going to go to the gym an hour a day. But it's a lot. Like you said, your brain's working against you all the time. Your brain's like, F that. Like, it's trying to conserve energy all the time. But if you're just like, you know what, I'm just going to put my gym clothes on. I'm just going to put my gym clothes on. Maybe I'll go to the gym. Maybe I won't. Guess what? The chances of you going to the gym are great. Hey, I'm just going to go to the gym in the beginning. I'm just going to go for 10 minutes. Okay. Well, it's easier. And then
already at the gym.
That's it. And then listen,
I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to walk on the treadmill 20 minutes. I can walk anywhere, but I'm going to do it at the gym.
Yes. And then the chances you make it there, and chances you're going to do more than that. But if you don't, dude, celebrate it. Like, I'm not joking. There's a day where I wanted to have a consistent, I was building consistency. And so I wasn't feeling good, did not want to go, but I went. I walked for like 0.2 miles, sat in the sauna for, I don't know, 5 minutes. And I walked out the door. I'm like, you badass, you crushed it, you know, because I made it. I kept the consistency going. That's it.
That's right. I absolutely have gone to Lifetime before and done a sauna and left. Like, you know what though? It is what it is. It felt good. I needed it. I sweat a lot. I'm like, well, check.
That's it.
You're a winner.
That's it. And you're continuing to feed the habit that you're trying to create. I love it. So, okay. So smaller broken down steps. Any other advice on what you would, just hacks that you would give people?
Oh my gosh. So all my hacks are going to be neuro hacks, obviously. So for people who are struggling with any type of like focus or motivation issues, right? Ways to engage your prefrontal cortex, anything that you're doing. So maybe like before a big meeting, if you need to give a presentation, something like that, you want the CEO of your brain, which is your prefrontal cortex, online running hot. Anything that you're doing that is bilateral, okay? So whether it's like cross crawling, if you like working out, maybe do some burpees. If you jujitsu, like anything that is working cross body, jumping jacks, utilizing both hemispheres of the brain is going to start to utilize and like really get your prefrontal cortex online. Do a couple math problems, like literally pull up a basic like algebra sheet. If you're like, what the frick is algebra? Multiplication, like anything that is going to start to get your prefrontal cortex online. So if you're somebody, you're going into a meeting and you're like, I just have a harder time staying focused, right? Everybody and their mom is like, I have ADD. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I haven't looked at your brain. But that's a really great way to kind of get your prefrontal cortex engaged. If you are going into a meeting that you're having, like you're feeling stressed about, right? Maybe you don't associate with the word anxiety. That's cool. If you're feeling a little bit like heightened, maybe ruminating about it, worrying about it, chest tightness about it, try either box breathing, also known as combat breathing, where you literally breathe in for 4, hold it for 4, breathe out for 4, hold it for 4. Great way to start regulating your central nervous system and your autonomic nervous system. Or try bilateral stimulation tapping. So tapping on either side, either hemisphere of your brain. You can tap anywhere. You can tap on your legs if you're in a meeting, you don't want somebody to see. It's physiologically going to disrupt the stress signal in your brain and help to bring you back to homeostasis faster.
Okay, so well, you went through it quick. I just want to break it down. So you said stress or anxiety or whatever. That's the tapping stuff.
Bilateral stimulation tapping, stress and anxiety for sure.
Okay, and then the other one is when you're getting ready to go into a meeting or going to go speaking event or something, talking to an investor or whatever it is. You said it.
It's so you want to utilize like anything bilateral, like of stimulation of the brain. So cross crawling, jumping jacks, burpees are going to be really good. Do like math problems. Obviously, I don't think everybody brings around like a physical puzzle to do on their table. That would be a really great way. If you're a nerd like me and you have puzzles on your table, which is cool, like you do you, that's a really great way. Sudoku on your phone. All of those things are going to engage your prefrontal cortex and just help you be that much like better and faster in your meeting.
You know what's crazy is things that I do. I have things that I do that I didn't realize that's. So I do a bunch of speaking engagements, and when I do those, I have a specific routine that I walk through, and I'm a routine person, so like that's just what I do. And I will tell you, I'll tell people like my mind is like it's most clear, most like it's on when I'm doing that. Like it's the sharpest when I'm doing that. But those little things you just mentioned, I do those things, and I didn't know. Like sometimes you do them, you don't realize what you're doing. I'm sure that somebody mentioned that to me at some point, or maybe I tried it at some point and it went well. I don't really know.
It's honestly probably that you tried it and your brain responded to it. Like you say, I'm my most on. Absolutely, your prefrontal cortex is firing, but our brain is like a machine. And if you train that machine well, if you train that animal, that beast, that muscle, it's going to respond for you the way that you want it to. If we train it to be these other ways and not intentionally, right? But if we train it to pull back and to pull away and to be fearful, it will do that. If you train it to lean in, it will do that.
Okay, so you said you store trauma in the brain or in the body. You said the body keeps score or keeps track or something. What are the different types of traumas that we store? I know that might be a very broad question, but yeah.
That is such a broad question. And honestly, it depends on the person. I mean, earlier development.
Give me your, you've listened to, late night. What are those? Hey, are you feeling stressed, anxious, don't have enough time? Like, they check off all those things that are.
Yeah.
What are those things? I'm all those things. Should I need all those things?
For sure. Everything, every single one. So, I mean, earlier developmental trauma. So familial nuclear family trauma, absent parent, parent divorced, adoption. There's also inner utero trauma. So maybe, mom was highly stressed or went through something when you were in utero, different things like that. So it's early developmental trauma. There's then like later trauma, right? So that we might not have cognitive memory of, but our brains and our bodies will still respond as if we have experienced that trauma. They also show in different areas of the brain, so we can tell what's early developmental versus later. There's PTSD trauma, right? I got into a horrible car accident. I almost died. My husband died. My girlfriend died. My parent died, whatever PTSD style trauma. I was in a shooting, something like that. That's more kind of inflicted on us, if you will, also shows itself differently. There's prolonged stress, right? That just like, if you are in a highly stressful situation and you don't really manage it super well or don't know how to manage it super well, prolonged stress over time can be traumatic for the brain. So, it is a really broad question. It also, that something that you might experience, you might think that was not traumatic for me. I didn't experience that. And somebody else might experience a similar situation and experience it, very traumatically. So that also depends on, our brain, our background, and how we experience things.
How often do you have, you nailed it. You literally, that was exactly what I was looking for. But how often do you have something that they don't think that it caused trauma, but then when you start to map their mind, you realize like, no, it actually did. You just learned how to cope with it or deal with it, or
you stuff it, right? Or we just shove that down and are like, that didn't affect me at all. Okay, well, how are your relationships? Terrible. Okay, well, honestly, some yes, some no. I think that, truly I believe as human beings, we do the best we can, right? And some people have a higher capacity than others for certain things. That's okay. We work a lot with first responder organizations, fire, police, who experience very, very horrifically traumatic situations, and they have to go back and do it again tomorrow, right? So they don't have like the time or the luxury to like, that was the worst thing ever. I'm gonna sit on that for a while. There are, high rates of alcoholism among, first responder organizations, things like that. So, sometimes we're coping with it not so well. Neurofeedback truly is a way to, kind of get in there and like work on it and heal it. But yes, I have those conversations all the time where I map people and I'm like, hey, wow, we're seeing a lot of fast wave activity. Okay, here's the symptomology around that. I'm not using the word PTSD, but I'm explaining it. And it's like, yeah, I experience all those things. But if I were to say, do you feel like you have PTSD? Absolutely not. Okay. And that's fine, right? If that's not something you associate with, that's okay.
how long has this technology been around? Like, do you feel like sometimes you're like, hey, let me tell you about you?
Actually, a lot of times I'll say in like a map review, hey, I'm probably not going to tell you anything you don't already know about yourself, but it's so validating. It's like a visual form of grace just to see it where it's not just in my head. I mean, it is, but it's happening in your brain. Neurofeedback actually started in the 1940s as really a way to train out epilepsy in the brain and help people with epileptic seizures. I do still work. I have people with, epileptic discharge in the brain. I see people often with that. It's not as common now as, medication really in a lot of ways is a lot more popular, I would say, among, epilepsy clients. But yeah, it started in the 1940s. I would say probably in the last 30 years, though, the research and the research studies that have been done give neurofeedback a lot more credit and a lot more efficacy as to what it's able to do.
So you said that it pretty much found you, or it was, I think the verbiage that you said.
Yeah.
The title of the podcast is Own the Outcome Podcast, which is, well, I would even ask you, like, what does that mean to you to own the outcome? And then as you're thinking about that, it's a challenge, challenges happen. And how do you, have you had challenges in your life? And is that what maybe led you here, what called you here? And then how did you own the outcome in your own life?
Yeah. So when I was 19, it was my sophomore year of college. Between my sophomore and junior year, I went home for the summer to visit my family, went and donated blood. And when I left, I passed out. I had given blood many times before, so honestly, it was just kind of a freak thing. And the way in which I fell on linoleum over cement and ended up fracturing my skull down the occipital plate. I was in intensive care for quite a while. Upon being released, eventually I was released in a walker, didn't walk on my own for a while, didn't go back to college for a while. If anyone has ever experienced like a pretty severe traumatic brain injury, it's very bizarre that, I like my legs work, but they don't work, right? Like my brain works, but it doesn't work. So it's not something like your arm is broken, you're wearing a cast so you can see that. It's very kind of like a hidden injury. And honestly, I will say before that, I was just, for lack of a better term, dicking around in college, doing whatever, like, having myself a nice little college party. And honestly, that experience, like it was the best thing that ever happened to me. So went through a lot of different types of like neurological therapy and physical therapy and occupational, and fought my way back and went back to college and carried a 4.0 through the rest of college, undergrad, then into graduate school. And that it's not because I'm some like miraculous person. I honestly, like, I knew that that was not my story. That was not my limitation. That was like that was the start. It was only up from there. I believe that I am capable of doing absolutely anything. I also have an incredible family. Like my mom sat me down with my neurosurgeon and was like, okay, not like, oh, there was no pity party. There was no like, you're injured. It was like, what do we need to do to get better? How are we going to make this happen? So yeah, that's a little bit about my story. So I had a pretty heavy neurological base. And then, the world, whether you believe in God or the universe or whatever that is for you, like that came back to me very full circle when neuro was presented to me. And I can vividly remember the first, patient sitting across from me who had a traumatic brain injury and was struggling. And I was like, there it is. Like, that's why I went through what I went through, because I don't know what you're going through. No one will ever know what you're going through, but I can empathize on a different level because I've been there. So yeah, it was, that's a little bit about my story and how it truly, I mean it, like neuro found me.
Dude, I love it. Like you said, empathize. And that's, I have a good buddy. His name's Rory Vaden. And Rory, he says, you're most uniquely qualified to serve the people you once were, or something like that. Yeah. And it's so true. And it's because you can find empathy in their situation. I love how you also mentioned, you don't know what they're going through, but you know that they're going through something because you've went through it, but you also can give them hope just by being you because you've overcome it.
100%.
Like, I think that's just a beautiful way to approach challenges. Like any challenge that I believe that this is one of my superpowers is it doesn't matter the challenge. It's like, and it really doesn't. It doesn't matter the challenge. It's like, when I get through this, man, I'm going to be able to help so many people do this. When I get through this, man, it's going to help this story here. It's like, I love how you said I knew this wasn't my story. This was what creates the story. Even that shift is so beautiful,
Thank you. And honestly, you're exactly right and I do believe that there are some people who that is their whole story. And that was absolutely not going to be my whole story. It's a part of it. It always will be. And honestly, it's a beautiful part of it. If I could go back and change it, I absolutely would not. In no way would I change it, because it propelled me to be exactly who I am now and allowed me to have the impact that I have now. Actually, Rachel and I also do keynote speaking, which I freaking love. And being able to share that story, because you're right, honestly, couple of blondes walking on stage talking about neuro, and like, is maybe not super relatable. Rachel has a really incredible testimony. Like, I've come from where I've come from, and honestly, I'm so thankful for that background and that platform to be able to share what we're able to share. And I believe that it just allows me to have, that kind of an impact, especially on that population. And yeah, I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah. And that's what's cool about keynote speaking, or just speaking period, is people have these preconceived notions, but as you're able to share your story, number one, that's how you connect, but you're able to help them understand, like, no, that story that you're telling yourself and that things are just all perfectly, perfect here. No, let me actually open the kimono and show you, like, no, it's not.
No, it's
like,
not.
It's not real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't matter, what your skin tone, your hair color, it doesn't matter, dude. Everyone has challenges. Everyone has problems. And it's how do we use this to not just get through those, but thrive through those, become stronger through those, right?
That's exactly right. That are we just surviving all the time, or, do we take our challenges and literally use them as fuel to the fire to propel us to whatever we want, whatever is going to make us great. And I use great as a loose term, whatever you consider to be great.
100%. 100%. So how does somebody get a hold of you first off? What's their process? And yeah, walk me through that process.
For sure. So Rachel and I actually do 100% of consultations for brain code centers. Do we have the time to do that? No. I love educating. That's like my favorite part of anything that I get to do.
I can tell.
Oh my gosh, just like you said, offering hope. That we get a lot of, I love when people come to us and are just like at that place. I'm like, hey, I have something that I believe can transform your life. So we do 100% of the consultations. We do have what I consider to be a bump in Instagram. Am I good at Instagram? No. Do we try really hard? Yes. So at Brain Code Centers, plural, is our Instagram. Braincodecenters.com is our website. But if you on any of those, platforms are like, hey, I want to chat with somebody, our consultations are 100% free. So I will not charge you anything to basically just find out what your options are, and kind of what neurofeedback could do for you. Or just if you're like, hey, I don't really want to do it, I just want to know more. Great, let's chat and talk about you and understand, kind of what your goals are. But yeah, those are probably the two best places, is either on Instagram or our website.
I love it. We'll put all those links. We'll put those links into the show notes and everything like that. So big part of my network, we deal with, newer investors we buy apartment buildings. That's like what I train and teach people how to do.
Yeah.
But I believe, so our tagline is think bigger. The reason that's our tagline is because my life truly shifted when I allowed myself to enhance my belief. And then that's continually shifting along the way, right? Like it's not just this slope up. It's like you drop down and you reconnect and you back up. But I believe so many people doubt their abilities along the way. So how do you, how do you correct yourself personally? You have some doubt in the journey, or you find someone that's having some doubt in the journey. How do you correct, or how have you seen people correct themselves to be able to, once again, create a new neural pathway or a new way to actually just like enhance your belief?
Totally. I call it reframing. And I do this, Rachel and I do this. Fortunately, again, I am blessed. I get to work with my best friend. If you're not doing it, I feel like you're doing it wrong. That it's the freaking coolest. But all the time, managing people is hard. Managing a company, running a company is hard. And all the time, we'll get into places where, we might have some negative thinking, right? That, man, I feel frustrated about this, what's going on here. And we constantly challenge each other. Let's reframe that. Hey, I am blessed every single day that I get to manage people. I get to be a better leader. They challenge me to be a better leader. I believe this is my first career. I'll believe I'll have another. I want to learn everything I can in this career. So throw it at me. I want all of the hard things now so that I can be better moving forward, right? Can I sit here and be like, I was a piece of crap today. I was the worst leader ever. Oh, my employees suck, whatever. Absolutely. You can sit there and have that mindset. Reframe that to, I am so thankful that I get to do this every single day, right? So we constantly are challenging each other. I would challenge anybody that I don't care what situation you're in, reframe that immediately. And I believe that you can find some kind of a silver lining, or at least something that like, hey, this is going to be a learning experience. Man, it sucks now. I know that it's going to make me better moving forward.
So good. So good. One of my good buddies, his name is Dallas Pruitt. He's actually one of my mental training coaches that I work with. And an exercise that he guided me through that I still implement to this day all the time is I will take, okay, what are these things that I'm saying, these beliefs, these, the verbiage that's in my head, fear, whatever it is. And I'll list them out on a piece of paper. And I'll do this when I'm feeling very overwhelmed or anxious or stressed or whatever you want to call it, right? So this is what I'll do. I'll literally sit down and I'll list out these things that are going through my head. And then the exercise is to, how's that actually a positive? This thing that you're viewing as a negative, how is it actually a positive? And that is a beautiful, beautiful exercise. And I'll give you an example. It just happened. Well, my wife did it to me actually just the other day. I'm going through a challenge right now that is it's a frustrating challenge. And I was in bed, laying in bed, like my eye mask is on. And I literally was like, it's just like, I feel like I've been a burden because I've had to travel so much. I've had to be gone. It's like, I'm doing a partnership buyout and the partner is extremely disruptive. And so my office is in Orlando, by the way, other side of the world. And so I've had to like go out there and travel back. So I just feel like I've been a burden to my family. And I said this to my wife. I said, like, literally, eye mask is on. I'm laying in bed and it's like, so sorry. I'm so sorry for putting you in this situation. And she says, like, this fast. She says, she made me emotional even thinking about it. But she said, yeah, no, seriously though, thank you for putting me in this situation. Thank you for putting us in a situation to move to Maui. Thank you for putting us in a situation to live in this beautiful home. Thank you for putting us in a situation to be able to give so much back to the community. Thank you for putting us in a situation to be able to travel and have these life experiences. And she just starts listing off all these things. I'm just in tears. Like, what a beautiful way to reframe it in the moment
Oh,
I wasn't thinking of it like it just came to me as you were saying it, but dude, it was beautiful in the
she
moment.
reframed that real quick.
Quick,
Yeah. And to
quick,
hear that coming from like your person and somebody that you trust, I bet that impacted so deeply.
deep, deep. I'll give you another example. I was, I lost one of my, right as we found out that that she was going to have a baby, and that's the only thing I ever knew I wanted to be was a dad. Like, I'm so excited about it. But at that same time, I lost one of my biggest clients that I had at the point. I had a web design, web hosting business, and I just lost the biggest client that I had, which was that was a blow at that point.
Yeah.
So Britt comes home and I'm like, I learn about that first thing in the morning, and I'm just like so stressed to talk to Brittany about this, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's gonna stress her out.
Yeah.
And I tell her what happens, and this is her knee jerk. She didn't say we better figure that shit out, we got a kid on the way. She said, she laughs and she goes, oh my gosh, what a dipshit, you're a badass, you'll figure it out, I have no doubt about it. Just like that's all I needed to hear in the moment, and I figured it out, and like life took off from there. But it's because that reframe thing you just mentioned is so powerful.
Oh my gosh, it's so powerful because we are what we speak into ourselves, right? And we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. Imagine if she had said to you like, well, you better figure that out. Our family depends on you. What were you thinking? That then feeds into that belief. You have chosen to surround yourself with people who reframe when you're not in that spot, right? That's another life freaking hack. Put people around you who are challenging you to be better every single day. And when you're not in that headspace, they put you back in it. No question.
Yes. And that's true love, like that they actually challenge you to put it back in. Right.
Absolutely. They say the things that you know maybe are true, but you're just not in that headspace to believe at that point. So they speak that into you and put it like they'll reframe it for you. Maybe they'll challenge you to reframe it yourself. It sounds like your wife, she knows you so well. She's like, I'm actually going to reframe that for you right now. Love that.
And you know what? My investment company, our tagline there is invest with aloha. And people know aloha is hello, goodbye, but it is. But when you really break down the meaning of aloha, you'll love this. Alo means to see, and ha is breath of life. So you'll notice when you say aloha, a lot of people will say it back. And it's because when I'm saying aloha, I'm saying, I see the God in you, and it's reciprocal. I know by seeing the God in you, you see the God in me. And if I see you not living up to your potential, the God in you, I'm going to breathe life into you. That's what aloha really means. That's true love.
I love that. That is absolutely. And I truly believe that, like, not only with your spouse or your person, but with, again, the people your inner circle should be breathing life into you every single day. And if they're not, I think you like challenge yourself about your inner circle.
That's it. So what would you tell, and this is maybe my last question, I don't want to be respectful of your time, but because I have these conversations and people will be like, oh man, but I don't want to like ditch them. I don't want to ditch them. I don't want to like feel like I'm leaving them. What would you say to that person?
Honestly, that is so hard. And as I have gotten older, I mean, truly, I'd say in the last couple of years, like you could consider it like loss of friendships or just like incongruency, right? That when things stop serving us well, I don't believe that it's like cutting people off. Challenge them, right? Like, hey, I'm really big on transparency and having very open conversations, probably all honestly to a fault. If you are feeling that way, have you challenged that person? You talk to them about it. Hey, here's how I feel when we're together. Like, do you feel that? Does this feel really negative? Does this feel down? Like, what's going on? Okay, so then do we challenge each other to be better? And if that person's not in it to win it with you in that way, I'm not saying you need to cut them out of your life. They should not be on your inner circle. We call those boundaries, right? So maybe that's somebody that, you see, once in a while. Maybe that's someone that you hang out with, it's like every so often. But creating those boundaries, no one will protect you but you, honestly. So if you feel like you're a ship and you're being drugged down by an anchor, nobody can cut you free but you. So either, okay, then continue to be drugged down, or evaluate what are the anchors in your life.
That's not the direction I thought you were going to go, but you absolutely I love that answer. Like, hey, have you challenged them? Flip it. Have you challenged them? And that is also powerful. Like, because a lot of people, what I've realized is a lot of people don't even realize that they're doing it. When I get called out, a lot of times I don't even realize I'm doing it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's not how I wanted that to come up.
100%.
They
Oh,
don't even
how people
know.
experience me as super negative? I had no idea. Maybe they don't, right? Okay, how do we reframe that and change that together?
Mhm. Dude, you're
Absolutely.
awesome, man. You're a beast. This is what, actually, I have one more question because this is a question that I did have for you. We're going to put all your or all the links and everything that you mentioned earlier. I'll put them all in the show notes. But do you have any, you mentioned Atomic Habits. Do you have, if you were to mention your top three, something, 3 to 5, however many you want to mention, but books that people could go study and just start to learn? What are your favorite books on this topic?
Woo. Okay, so Atomic Habits is absolutely one of my favorite books. This is like completely like not really, I mean, everything's related, but Glucose Revolution was one of the most impactful books that I read. It's all about blood sugar, incredible. I'm real holistic and all the things. And I do believe that if people's blood sugar, even if you're not diabetic, is out of whack, you're out of whack. Man's Search for Meaning is probably one of my favorite books of all time. Viktor Frankl, you're smiling. Have you read it?
Oh, it's a great book. Yeah.
I read it at least once a year just to have that same impact. Viktor Frankl was a neurologist and psychologist and an Auschwitz internment camp. Anyways, that book will absolutely change your life. He created logotherapy, which is meaning therapy, finding meaning in suffering. And I do believe that as the human race, if we are not able to find meaning in suffering, then like, how do we live? So you have to be able to find that. So those are my top ones. Yeah, those are my top ones.
So good. So good. And meaning and suffering is reframing. That is reframing. That's what you mentioned earlier.
If we're not doing
I
it,
love
we're
it.
not doing it right.
I'll put those in the show notes as well. The one with, what was the second one that you mentioned? The one with
Glucose Revolution.
Glucose Revolution. I've not read that one. I'll definitely read that one.
Oh man, if you're into like any type of I mean, it seems like you are into like fitness, nutrition, all those things. It's a totally different way of looking at things, like how it's not even just what you eat, it's literally the order in which you eat. And I do believe that with the amount of like sugar and carbs and thing that we eat, our blood sugar is just spiking all over the place. And what that's doing to us mentally, emotionally, physically, it's amazing. It's a great book. Super important.
Interesting. Not just what you eat, but the order in which you eat it. I would never even have thought in that line.
It's wild. Like literally eat your fiber first because it creates a fibrous lining in your gut so that everything actually digests slower so you stay fuller longer. It's wild. I'm like, maybe other people wouldn't find that deeply interesting. I'm here for the glucose rev.
Yeah. So it's like all that kind of stuff. It's finding hacks in your life that make you the most optimized, best version of you,
100%. Absolutely.
Okay. I'll put everything on there, and y'all are crazy if you don't schedule a consultation. And the link, we'll make sure they get it from your team as well, but the link to make sure they can schedule a consultation
100%.
with y'all.
Yep, I'll get that.
Thank you so much for all your knowledge and your expertise and taking the time to share it. Like, I can tell you're so passionate about it, which I love that. I obviously love talking to people who actually have passion. I think passion is infectious in the best way, and you have it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for being willing to kind of put yourself on blast and share personal stories. I think that transparency and that authenticity is incredible. So thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate you, Angie. Thank you. Everybody else out there, go follow Angie, book a consultation. And then as always, live always with aloha. Peace.